Greetings, everyone. So nice to see you. Today we're going to be exploring ecological consciousness and our interrelationship with nature. And to begin, I'd like to share with you a little bit about my own inauspicious beginning of any ecological consciousness that I may have. I grew up in the suburbs of St. Louis. And when I was a child, my family really didn't spend any time out in nature. My dad and my brother were highly allergic to poison ivy, and there had been some kind of an incident with a wasp and my brother. I don't know exactly what it was. It was before I was born, but we didn't do anything out in nature. We had a beautiful backyard, but we never went hiking, we never went camping. And it was, I never really felt like I missed anything. That was just what we did. I didn't have a longing to go out in forest or to walk through a meadow. And I had a great childhood. It just didn't include hiking and camping and being out in the woods. My father's father had grown up on a farm. And when the United States entered World War I, my grandfather and all of his brothers enlisted in the army, and they served in Europe, and they never came back to that farm, which is what happened to millions of young men and families after World War I. There really weren't many opportunities for them to earn a living on a farm in outstate Missouri. So they settled in St. Louis. And these men worked really hard. And I don't think they looked forward to going hiking or a lot of physical labor after working so hard in their jobs. And I never heard that they were particularly interested in camping or being out in nature. For them, it was they appreciated having a stable place to live in the city, a stable way to make a living. And it was in the next generation, when in my dad's generation, that they began to appreciate some modern conveniences. My dad was also a very hardworking man. He was very athletic and spent a lot of time outdoors doing sports, but he was not interested in hiking or camping, as I said. And St. Louis gets very hot and humid. So he appreciated the modern convenience of air conditioning. And our house was like a meat locker. It was so cold all summer long. We never opened our windows ever. The house was shut up very tightly all 12 months of the year. And this just seemed very normal to me. Also, we watched a lot of television. There have been many studies about the effects of television on American society and eventually everyone's society, especially from the late 1950s on. And when I came home from school, my friends and I, we watched reruns, old reruns on television. Everybody's family spent the night in front of their televisions. We all watched the same programs on 3 channels. This was such a huge change in our society, and it drew us even further away from attuning with nature. As I mentioned, the house that I grew up in had a beautiful backyard. It was, my dad took really good care of it, and it was landscaped very beautifully. And when I became an adult, I remember one time thinking that I was doing my part for the environment because I took care of my lawn. And I really believed that. I thought, I'm taking care of my little place in the world, and that's my responsibility for taking care of the environment. And I suspect that I wasn't alone in a lot of these experiences. Maybe some of you had similar experiences. And I may be describing a childhood much like yours, which again was a very loving childhood, and I had a great childhood. Even before my parents' and my grandparents' lifetimes, Western society had already started to disconnect from nature in many ways, even starting thousands of years ago. In the Western world, thousands of years ago, the Judeo-Christian religion proclaimed that humans ruled over Earth. We ruled over the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, the animals, and over all the earth. This is in the most sacred writings. And it even adds, it's as if that's not enough, and then it adds, and over every crawling creature that crawls on the earth. So it's us versus them, and we were the winners. Science has also worked to provide knowledge and tools so that we can control nature rather than being part of a universal process. Again, it's us versus nature. And that's easy to understand when you think of the challenges that our distant ancestors faced with things like extreme weather and needing protection from wild places and viruses. So it's understandable that science would work to be able to control nature for our safety. And this started thousands of years ago. Science created climate control indoors, that air conditioning that my family enjoyed so much, and outdoors, like large hydroelectric dams were built to control unruly rivers and to produce electricity. And then the more electricity you sold, the more money you made. So then let's use more air conditioners. Today, Americans spend more than 90% of our time indoors. Americans now spend more than 90% of our time indoors. Our society communicates that natural resources are there for people to use, that Earth is a gravel pit and a garbage dump for us to use. It's here for us. And without a connection to nature, people lose interest in protecting it. So how can we reconnect with nature and understand our place in the universe? And perhaps one of the first questions to ask is, why would we want to? Why would we want to give up our entitled status? I mean, we're the #1 species on Earth. It's predicted that there may be 8.7 million species on Earth, and we've decided we're the most important species. We certainly have the greatest influence. So in any case, we're #1. Why would we want to give that up? And according to the Christian Bible, we're the pinnacle of the divine's creation. We are the big winners. Human beings are the big winners. If we have to mow down forests so that we could read a hard copy book or newspaper or magazine because it's our preference, we deserve that. We're human beings and we deserve that. I read recently that produce each week's Sunday newspaper, 500,000 trees need to be cut down. For the Sunday newspapers in the United States, every Sunday, 500,000 trees are cut down. And if it's more convenient for us to use plastic and throw it away, irrespective of where it might end up, why not? We're the most important species. And if we don't feel like walking or biking, but instead want to take our car for a short polluting trip, that's our right, because we're humans. Also, you know, we have opposable thumbs, and that makes us better than all those species that don't have opposable thumbs. These thumbs provide us they provide us the ability to grip objects so we can use tools. Now, it is true though that there are other animals that can use tools. Crows don't have opposable thumbs, but they use tools. They use sticks to fish for insects. And oh yeah, elephants use tools, and dolphins, and let's see, sea otters and gorillas. Okay, so, but we do have entitled status because we can write. And I'm pretty sure no animals can write. We also have the largest brains. Well, not exactly the largest brains. Of course, whales have larger brains, and African elephants actually have 3 times more brain neurons than we do. But we are the smartest. And we're also the most self-aware. We have consciousness of self. And okay, dolphins do seem to exhibit some awareness of themselves. For example, they can recognize themselves in a mirror, and chimps can laugh at jokes. But we are definitely the most self-aware species. So why would we want to give up being number 1? Why would we want to give up that status? And it may be because our current worldview with us at the center is failing us. Look at the challenges we are facing. We can, by seeing how our current worldview, or what can be called our paradigm, by seeing how that might be helping us, how it might not be helping us to meet our goals, we can work toward a healthier, more sustainable future. And how can we do this? By reconnecting with nature and understanding our place in the universe. In 2010, the Rosicrucian Digest published an article that explored paradigm shifts. It's written by Denise Breton and Christopher Largent. And they talk about changing paradigms in life and society. And some of these are related to substance addictions, such as alcohol, drugs, food, sugar, and nicotine. Process addictions, such as being addicted to work, being addicted to winning, to making money, to getting fame, to living out our family dramas. And in this article, they explore the work of Thomas Kuhn, K-U-H-N, who introduced the term paradigm in his book called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, which was published in 1962. And his book explores how changes have taken place in science over history. To raise paradigm issues is to reflect on the ideas or concepts we're using as our map of reality, which is our worldview, our life perspective, our philosophy, or our mental model. To look at our paradigm is to look at the blueprint that we're using to build our worlds. Now, how do paradigms start? They usually begin with some exemplary model, like Newtonian science or Einstein's relativity, that weave together theories, standards, and methods in a way that makes better sense than anything else. To share a paradigm is to share a commitment to rules that define how a scientist acts and reacts. No part of scientific activity is outside the reach of the paradigm's influence. It's as if scientists' energies get poured through the paradigm's mold, and whatever comes out is stamped by that all-encompassing model. So a scientific paradigm, everyone approaches it with that belief system, and every result is going to have the imprint of what we already believe. In the decades since Kuhn's paradigm concept was introduced, it has been applied to every discipline, from the arts to business. And in this article in the Rosicrucian Digest they share, we experience our lives the way we do because of the paradigms we carry around. In computer terms, Paradigms function like the central operating system of consciousness, the supra program that transforms undefined perceptions into something we call our experience. They give us the mental tools to make sense of life and survive in it. We may not be able to summarize our paradigm in 10 words or less, but our every thought is paradigm connected, even paradigm created. End quote. Process addictions are every bit as deadly as substance addictions because they underlie substance addictions, as well as just about every social and global ill we have. Applied to life, the normal science phase is business as usual, families as usual, politics, churches, schools, and professions as usual. When we're ticking away with a paradigm's framework, the norm is well defined and we conform. We conform. Everything feels right. We feel comfortable because our actions fit in with what everyone has accepted as our worldview. Coping skills mean finding ways to fit into the norm, whether it's healthy or not. In fact, healthy is whatever the paradigm says it is. Becoming healthy means adjusting to the paradigm's definition. The revolutionary development comes when the paradigm reaches a crisis. And I'm going to suggest that it's possible that the paradigm, the worldview that the Western world and most of the world has been embracing for a long time is at that point today. That our paradigm has led us to a crisis. The paradigm doesn't solve problems the way it did once. Anomalies, things that the paradigm can't explain, start accumulating. Paradigm health starts making us sick. More and more, the paradigm doesn't work. That's when scientists are challenged to shift paradigms by moving into a phase that Kuhn called extraordinary science. So again, Kuhn looked at how were changes made in science over the millennia? Why did people stop believing one thing and start believing something else? The more the paradigm fails to do its job, the more old paradigm scientists try to make it work. The paradigm is ripe for a revolution, but because they've forgotten that they even have a paradigm, scientists conclude instead that their world is falling apart. Solutions, alternative ways of doing science, don't exist. As far as they're concerned, they've explored all the possibilities, and the only options they see don't help. They are too paradigm bound to notice that they're stumbling over the limits of their own models. Now, we might think that changing a paradigm that's not working would be easy, but it's not. Even Albert Einstein wrote the following, quote, "During the revolutions in physics early in this century," he's referring to the 20th century, "it was as if the ground had been pulled out from under one, with no firm foundation to be seen anywhere, upon which one could have built." End quote. The Rosicrucian Manifesto, published in 1614, entitled The Fama Fraternitatis, tells the story of a man named Brother C.R. He's later identified as Christian Rosenkreuz, but at first he's called Brother C.R., he sets out on a pilgrimage, and his mentor who is with him dies, and instead of going to Jerusalem, where they were originally going to go, he goes to Cyprus and Damcar and Egypt and Fez, and is introduced to some of the most profound wisdom in the world. When he returns to Europe, especially to Spain, so enthusiastic about sharing what he's learned, the scholars didn't want to hear what he had to say. Rather, they were more interested in protecting what they already believed, in protecting their paradigm. They did not want their knowledge questioned. So Brother CR created a fraternity that perpetuated the wisdom that he gathered, the Rosicrucian Order. His goal was to create a fraternity capable of providing counsel to the rulers of Europe, like the ancient oracles had previously done, who would become guiding lights of society. Now, in this Rosicrucian manifesto, again published in 1614, new Rosicrucians who came along in the story 108 years later perpetuated this knowledge to help restore peace and harmony in society. And that's where we come in. What did Christian Rosenkreutz learn on his journey? First, he visited Cyprus, which was the birthplace of the Greek goddess Aphrodite, whose union with Hermes gave birth to Hermaphrodite, an androgynous child. Androgyny symbolizes the balance of the primordial masculine and feminine, harmonized wholeness of the spiritual and material, and freedom from the world's duality. In alchemy, androgyny is a form of spiritual alchemy in which a new being is created through the natural harmony of the feminine and the masculine. When Brother RC is in Damcar, which was a mystical city in Arabia, it was inhabited by a group of adepts. And they had an important encyclopedia there that they gathered both scientific and esoteric material. They combined science and mysticism. Damcar was known to have safeguarded the Corpus Hermeticum, the core documents of the Hermetic tradition that perpetuated the wisdom of the mystery schools of ancient Egypt, especially about correlations, as above, so below. While in Damcar, CR met with the Ismailian Magi, who passed on to him important knowledge in physics and mathematics, which are contributions from the Arab world, and gave him a secret book called the Book M, Liber Mundi, the book of the world, and the ideas of Paracelsus, which he translated into Latin. Paracelsus, the German-Swiss physician and alchemist, had worked to synthesize many different branches of esoteric knowledge. He was a pioneer in several aspects of the medical revolutions of the Renaissance, emphasizing the value of observation in combination with received wisdom, and establishing the role of chemistry in medicine. He rejected the Galen medical approach and met with the most important alchemist of his time, not only to learn their efficacious medical treatments, but also to discover the latent forces of nature and how to do them and how to use them in our lives. After 3 years of study in Damcar, Brother CR spent a brief time in Egypt studying biology and zoology, and then he traveled to Fez, Morocco. Fez was an important philosophical and intellectual center with magnificent libraries. It was also known for its alchemy schools. Brother CR perfected his knowledge of historical cycles there and learned through nature that what is below is like that which is above. He was introduced to the elementary inhabitants. These are gnomes and fairies and nymphs, nature spirits, who revealed many of their secrets to him. These elementary inhabitants are invisible, spiritual counterparts of what we see in nature, the essences of earth, air, water, and fire. According to Paracelsus, they share the secrets of nature with those who know how to contact them. Brother CR was most impressed with the transdisciplinary collaboration among the scholars of Arabia and Africa, who met each year to share their knowledge. They celebrated if they found better ideas, or if experience showed the reasoning of their previous findings might not be correct. Can you imagine that? Celebrating when you're wrong so that you can learn from it. Every year, their knowledge in mathematics, physics, and magic was amended. Brother CR's goal was to create a fraternity capable of providing counsel to the rulers of Europe, who would become guiding lights of society. And to summarize what he found, valuing the primordial feminine, including collaboration, partnership, and intuition, as well as the masculine, and harmonizing the wholeness of the spiritual and the material. Encyclopedic knowledge, including scientific and esoteric knowledge, the scientist and the mystic together. Understanding correlation, such as the Hermetic principle, what is above is like that which is below. And our relationship with the whole, with the universe. Discovering the latent forces of nature and how to work with them. Interacting with the invisible spiritual counterparts of visible nature, the essences of earth, air, water, and fire. And collaborating with others to expand and improve their knowledge. The perspective of Brother CR expands our awareness to see that we are part of and connected with everything, with each other, you and me, with all humanity, with all beings, with all life, trees and dolphins and crows and bees, and the essences of earth, air, water, and fire, with everything in the universe of which we are not the center. We all swim in the same vibrational sea. The rates of our vibrations give us the impression that we're separate, but we are not. As Kuhn observed during scientific revolutions, the paradigm cause of crises remains invisible to the old paradigm practitioners. They believe we don't need a new paradigm, we just need to make the one we have work better. Nothing is wrong with our social systems, since that would call the underlying paradigm into question. Instead, when things don't work, something must be wrong with us. And now come the threats. To be controlled, we have to be unplugged from competing sources of control. The major threat to external control over us is our internal guidance system, our souls. Franz Hartmann wrote in a book entitled An Adventure Among the Rosicrucians, the continual rush after more money, more comfort, more pleasure, after we already possess all we require, and which characterizes our present civilization, is not necessarily a sign of greed, viciousness, and moral depravity. But it is rather caused by the instinctive impulse inherent in the constitution of humans to reach something higher and better, which expresses itself on the physical plane. People intuitively know that no matter how rich in money or fame they be, they have not yet reached a state in which to be contented and to rest. They know that they must still keep on striving for something, but they do not know what that something is. Not knowing the higher life, they strive for more of those things which the lower life affords, and thus waste their energies for the attainment of things which are useless to them. Our curse is to not know our true nature. We can come to know our true nature by spending time in nature. I've shared a little bit with you about some of my early experiences, and there was a life-changing moment for me related to ecological consciousness and becoming aware that I was part of something much more magnificent. And it occurred as part of my initiation into the Rosicrucian First Temple degree. Now, I'm not going to share details of the ritual with you, of course. We all take an oath not to share what the rituals are. And the First Temple degree initiation is always conferred in two parts. I was living in St. Louis at the time, and they conferred part one on a Saturday evening, and then part two was going to be conferred at dawn the next morning. And we were to observe silence between the time that we left the temple. And when I returned home, my two dogs were used to going for a walk in the evening, and they hadn't gotten their walk. And so I took them to a nearby park, which allowed this. And it was probably 9 or 10 o'clock at night. No one else was there. And so my dogs were playing with each other, and I was sitting there just very relaxed. And the St. Louis Lodge had scheduled their First Temple degree initiation to occur at the time of the full moon. And I sat there just going within, and I began to feel the energy of the moon upon my being. And I experienced this profound attunement with the energy of the moon, and I lost all sense of where my body was physically, and I attuned on a different level of awareness with everything that exists. And as you might imagine, this completely transformed my paradigm, my perspective, my worldview, my direction. And for those of you who know me, you can probably see why I'm so particular about our initiations. In my experience, they are the real deal. And I have had so many profound experiences as an initiate, as a candidate in initiations, and also with the great privilege of serving as an officer for other members. It's just such a rich tradition. And throughout the Rosicrucian teachings, we are encouraged to harmonize with the natural world. There's nothing like breathing in the fresh air with its cosmic essence, or soaking up the sun's glorious energy, or being inspired by a majestic mountain, or a powerful river, or a soaring eagle, or a mother deer with a fawn. There are many reasons that we benefit from harmonizing with nature. Of course, nature shares vital food with us, and vital oxygen and natural resources that nourish our bodies, but it's so much more than that, isn't it? It's so much deeper than that. This connects us to our natural state of being, an awareness that the environment is not something apart from us, but that we are essential elements of the environment, of the natural world, of the universe, making us something so much grander. And these experiences don't only benefit us, they also benefit the environment. Because the more inspiring experiences we have with nature, the more likely we are to be passionate about protecting the environment. I'm not alone in having experiences like this. I know many of you have had similar experiences. And I'm going to share what a few other people have said about their experiences with connecting with nature. Henry David Thoreau wrote, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived." Jane Goodall has said, "I don't have any idea of who or what God is, but I do believe in some great spiritual power. I feel it particularly when I'm out in nature. It's just something that's bigger and stronger than what I am or what anybody is. I feel it, and it's enough for me." John Muir wrote, "Climb the mountains and get their good tidings. Nature's peace will flow into you as sunshine flows into trees. The winds will blow their own freshness into you, and the storms their energy, while cares will drop away from you like the leaves of autumn." George Washington Carver said, "I love to think of nature as an unlimited broadcasting station through which God speaks to us every hour, if we will only tune in." And this is from the Rosicrucian Code of Life. "Consider nature as being the most beautiful sanctuary and expression of divine perfection on earth. Respect life in all its forms and look upon animals as conscious and sensitive beings and not as mere living things." What do you think animals want us to understand? What do plants want us to hear? Frater Serge Toussaint, who's the Grand Master for the French Grand Lodge, has written an open letter to animals. And we're going to publish this in the next issue of the Rosicrucian Digest. And he invites us at the end to imagine that animals are able to reply to his letter, his open letter to animals, with a letter to humans. And I invite you now, we're going to do a short meditation. I invite you now to close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths, becoming more relaxed with each exhalation. Now imagine some animals, or one animal in particular, that's able to reply to Grandmaster Serge's open letter to animals with a letter to humans. What would animals say to us? How would they assess our behavior towards them? What would they ask us? What hopes do they have for themselves and for humans? What hopes do they have for all beings? When you're ready, open your eyes. And we're going to unmute the microphones, and please feel free to share in the chat. What hopes do animals have for themselves and for others? What are they asking from us?
They're asking that we can all live together in harmony and in peace with each other.
Julie, I have seen a lot of videos and pictures where animals that you cannot imagine, they are very good friends and they don't separate. Mm. Once a rhino, after a flood in Africa, he chose a gigantic turtle as a mother. Mm. And you should have seen the turtle with the head stretched and the rhino with his entire head on top of the neck. Mm. And she was a lion with a bear, and they are inseparable. To me, they are screaming to us. You call us animals, and we are teaching you how to live in harmony. To me, nature is screaming to us. I grew up very close to Mother Nature, and I'm sorry, it really touched me deeply. So we should put more attention to the animals and nature.
It reminded me of a story that was when I was in graduate school about Coco the Gorilla, if people know about Coco. And, you know, Coco, they taught her to sign and communicate. And she asked for a kitten. And so as she got older, they decided that they wanted to get her a mate. So they got a male gorilla, which was considerably younger than her. And she treated it more like a son than as a mate. And she was able to help teach this other gorilla signing so it could communicate. Well, this gorilla told the story about how when it was a baby, the poachers came, killed its mother, and chopped off its hands, and how traumatic that was for him. So that's always touched me.
This really touches, am I on there? This really touches me a lot because, you know, I have a nonprofit that does anti-poaching work in Africa, and how cruel, how we're wiping out all those lovely animals. But without judging anyone, I think myself included, because I have a long way to go, that the animals would say, take your beliefs and try to execute them in practice. Know where your meat comes from. You don't have to be a vegan or a vegetarian, but know that it doesn't come from a factory farm. Ask yourself if you need the chemicals on your lawn. So, you know, I love that the order is I just love today. I love that the order is asking us to walk our talk in this area and switch our paradigm. And that the more that we do in that way, the more our paradigm will shift, the deeper our spirituality will go, when we're not poisoned by how we're treating the animals and the environment. So sorry to go on so long, but this is very meaningful to me too.
Thank you.
I saw a little hand feeding a fawn and this beautiful doe, and then watched it grow in these beautiful velvety antlers. And then I felt fear, and this picture, and I'm not trying to make a statement on anything because I often don't know what I'm talking about, but a picture of a family with the dead deer posed and asking for dignity in death. An understanding, but just to honor the way the ancients did when we took a life, what that sacredness was to be fed by the mother. And then I saw a 5-pointed star, and I don't know what that's about, and this beautiful swirling light threads, so beautiful. And then in the center was this rose-colored light, and I thought if we could really feel from our hearts and think with our hearts, that there would be dignity and so much love, and there would be harmony from that. And I think the Rosicrucian way of thinking and thinking with our hearts. And I'm going to start crying, so I'm going to stop. But it was very beautiful.
Thank you.
Soror Peg, the deer, the beautiful deer that was in my backyard yesterday, he would say, please be kind to us, to all animals and to each other. All we want is peace profound. You preach peace, but you do not practice it. So motivate.
This is Linda. I think we need to stop polluting their world. We're polluting our world. It's everyone's world, and we need to get together on that.
This Florence, the animals are more kind to each other than human beings today. I seen last week a video of monkeys, and one of them fell off the tree, and the other one is performing CPR, and until he came alive, and it was wonderful to see. And nature is always talking to us.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Eric. I was just going to say I was raised in the woods, not like you, Sora Julie, Grandmaster Julie. I basically spent most of my days in the woods all the way from like age 3, 4 years old. Got my first little pocket knife when I was about 3. So anyway, now I live in the mountains. But I was just going to say the nature is probably the most divine experience if you look at anything, whether Buddhist or Christian mysticism with the prophets, Isaiah being fed by ravens, you know, the different signs, of course, the calling down of the she-bears on the children that were making fun of them, which, you know, a little bit violent, but, you know, it's divine's always been totally immersed, and, you know, just the energy surrounds everything, flows through everything, nature included. And I just wanted to say to be in balance with that is the most divine thing ever. That's basically my thoughts.
Thank you.
I had an experience recently with a deer, and the deer was just loving me, and I was loving the deer. It was so lovely, just for a very long time, just in the zone.
How
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yes.
I think animals and plants help us to appreciate the great creativity of the universe. They are so varied, so diverse, and it's amazing the numbers of animals, the different types, and we appreciate the creativity of the cosmic through them.
Thank you.
This Frederick, I had an experience. Oh, go ahead. I had an experience with a deer too. Two mothers, right in front of the house. They came to have a baby, and somehow the mothers will leave, and then the two fawns, just like about 6 to 8 feet apart, they'll be sleeping, and they go each and every day. They will come and sleep at the very same spot, each one of them. And I was wondering whether the mothers have abandoned these fawns. And it's like a couple of days later, I saw the mother and the fawn. It's like giving me the message that no, we didn't abandon our babies. And then next to a tree was these birds also, you know, they've made a nest and they're feeding. So my wife was saying, what does this mean? So he said, look, it's like they've taken this spot in front of the house as their home. They go and hang out wherever they go, but sometime during the evening, they all camp out. So that was a beautiful message to us as, you know, how we relate to these animals and the messages that they are giving to us. And one big thing, which is love. So thank you for the message.
Beautiful.
Grandmaster, this is John Fowler in Colorado. And when I did the exercise that you suggested, I received a series of questions from a deer. And where we live, we see deer a lot. They wander through the property, as do elk. And we had a great conversation. But I was compelled to share something with you because somebody might put it to use. Every year I taught in the Denver public schools and private Montessori schools for close to 40 years. And one of the things that emerged from that practice was what we called a council of all beings, which has been done by some environmental activists who I've had the pleasure of working with. But we did it with kids. And we asked them to first pick an animal that was endangered. Then make a mask of that, write a report on it about what the animal needs. And the first report was more scientific. The animal lives here, it needs this sort of food, nutrition. It lives in families of this size. It behaves in this way. And it's suffering, or there's a loss of this species due to environmental degradation or whatever, loss of habitat and so forth. It took many days to make these masks. They were big paper mache masks. And we asked them to make them bigger than their faces, and we guided them. And we took time out every year to do it in the spring around Earth Day, in the spring equinox. The kids would walk in a ritualized pattern. They would walk in, turn at right angles, go to a microphone, place a mask over the microphone and their head close to the mic, so all that the audience saw was the animal speaking. And then they would say, I am so-and-so. I live with my family. And I'd like to talk to you human beings, much as you suggest. And I let it go. I did not put any restraints on them. And I just said, if you're angry, say so. If you're pleading, say so. If you want help, say so. And the kids just did it, allowing their master within, which is shared, of course, at that level of all life. But I thought I'd share that because it might be something for your communities, for your schools, for your church groups, that they would like to do it.
Thank you so much. We're on the summer solstice on June 20th. We're going to have a symposium. I'll be one of the presenters, and Frater Julian Johnson, Frater Michael Shaluli, and Soror Ingrid Young. And I'd like to use your suggestion to begin our time together on that day, on the summer solstice. So I invite everyone who is participating in this teleconference today, who is able to participate. We're starting at 10 o'clock Pacific time on Saturday, June 20th, that we all come prepared to represent a more than human. How does that sound? So anybody who wants to come prepared to do that, you can make a mask, you can just put it on a piece of paper and we can share. what that being would want us to hear. So that will be part of the June 20th Summer Solstice Symposium. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to move on to another meditation now. So again, please sit comfortably. Close your eyes. Take 3 deep breaths. In the same way that we've asked what animals would want to say to us, how would they assess our behavior towards them, what hopes do they have for themselves and for us, let's do this same thing with the plants around us, with the trees, with ferns and moss and algae and every plant. What do the trees want us to hear? Make a note of what came to you, about what the trees want us to hear. And now, what are the stars saying to us? What are the stars? What do the stars want us to know? What does life want from you? What does life want from you? When you're ready, open your eyes. And again, we'll unmute the microphone. So if anyone would like to share, so just share a word or two about what came to you, about what the trees or plants or the stars or what does life want from you?
Thank you. I'd like to offer the trip that I was walking through in the park earlier today when we came home from a picnic outside with the trees. I was following this course with the sun, keeping my time to get home. And this trees, they reminded me of the trees from different parts. I thought a tree was introduced from Africa, and I found a tree that reminded me of teal, which is a drink I drink from tea made from these tea tree leaves. And I was walking, and your questioning at this time in my meditation reminded me of the exercise to feel like this time parsing through the starlight in the tree and composing what I'm going through in my vocality at this stage in my life, and how do I relate the voice that moves across the world and is in this moment, and then it will move somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Life wants from us to live in harmony with nature.
Thank you.
You leave elephants and trees to imitate them. How do they take care of their families?
Thank you.
I think the trees are telling us that when they die, we die.
Thank you.
I think I go into the woods almost every day for a hike, and I start out apologizing to the trees. I know that sounds crazy, but the pollution and everything it's our fault, and it takes me a few minutes to get comfortable because we've really done so many bad things to me. Thank you.
I think they like it when we come visit. When we're done here, I had a choice: either wash my clothes or go take a walk. So I think I'll take a walk.
Yay!
I think the trees are telling us to stand tall and be peaceful and calm.
Thank you.
I think the trees are telling us to invest in them, to actually invest in them medically, because when we look at the infected ground with metals and we plant trees there, they collect those metals in their body. They kind of clean the ground. For the stars, they're actually telling us that the same mechanism they get born with is the same mechanism that the tree or plant get born with. So we need to invest in the trees so that we guarantee many generations on this earth. And when it comes to life is teaching us to be shoulders for any life on this planet.
The trees always tell me that they welcome we mystics to come to alternate realities, because we know that we can go to alternate realities. We know that we can create reality with our thoughts, but we also have to act in the reality that we find ourselves in on a day-to-day basis. So that's what the trees tell me.
Thank you.
Actually, it was quite profound for me, because I found the trees were saying, let us love us. We give you so much. We want to get to know you better. We want to feel you. We give love. We give peace. We give joy, and we heal, and we provide medicine. So try to understand us. The stars are saying we're up here, but you don't understand us. But we love you, and it's similar to where you are. There's a lot of secrets in the stars, and life is saying, asking for peace in this stars. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the trees are saying, go electronic, rekindle. The stars are saying, when you're dust, what light will you send? And life has said to me, cherish me.
Beautiful.
My grandpa was a conservationist. The beauty, I saw on the trees the beauty of cosmic. I always call them the clothes of cosmic. And when I'm walking through the trees, I can feel it, and it feels nice. It gives a good vibrations, same as the stars the beauty and the clothes of cosmic.
I've experienced, well, several times in my lifetime, I've experienced that all is life and that the heavens, there's no such thing as dead space. It is alive and it sings. And my first experience was when I was 8 years old. I remember sitting out on the front steps because my mother had just had a big fight with my grandmother. And I was sitting there, it was Christmas Eve, and actually I could hear the heavens sing. And so I know that all is life and that all is connected. And we just have to put ourselves in a place to really be there all the time.
Thank you. HR, I think you were saying
Yeah,
something?
I was going to say my grandfather was a conservationist. He was also a hunter, but he took very good care of the animals. He nurtured them all. But what I remember most is when we'd be walking with him through the woods. He had a lot of property that was very overgrown, and when he was walking through the woods, he would move the stuff on the clutter on the ground away from a sprout or a tree coming up, and that's what he would just do that naturally. I didn't even figure out what he was doing at first, but that's kind of how that got ingrained into me, to care for nature, to care for the trees, because he just did it unconsciously. It was a very special thing.
Oh, beautiful. We're going to move on to.
Yes, one question.
Okay, we'll do one more, and then we're going to move on to a final meditation. Yes, please.
The tree tell me, I'm here to help you live, breathe better, and live a better life.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? Maybe we'll do one or two more.
I heard you, Soror, that when you told us about the shush, shush, shush sound, and I heard the air and the reeds and the trees that want us to listen to them as they're dancing in the air and feeling the sunlight on them, and it's beautiful. We get caught up in so much pain that's going on, but there's so much harmony and beauty with them. And then I thought about the stars, and they were all these connected lines, and I heard Frater Lonnie Edwards say, beingness. So I'm going to sit with beingness, and I'm going to think about shush, shush in the reeds and talk to my trees and see what comes out of it. But it was wonderful.
I can't wait to hear about your experiences. Do we have one more? Okay, well, we'll go ahead and move on then. So consider the amazing opportunity at hand today. I mean, what times are we living in right now? Kuhn believed that paradigms permeate our consciousness so thoroughly that the only way to get rid of them is for old paradigm practitioners to die off, or we can die to a deadening paradigm. So again, in his research of how scientific revolutions occurred, in some cases it required that the people who so strongly believed in them and wouldn't let them go, their time just passed. They lived their lives and new people with fresh ideas came in. Or we can die to deadening paradigms. No matter how committed we are to making a personal paradigm shift, how can we do it if our shared systems don't come with us? And we do it by creating a new story. The new story that the Rosicrucians have to offer is actually our ancient one that I shared with you before, and it's finding peace in our true nature. Again, Brother Christian Rosenkreutz, or Brother CR, he created a fraternity that perpetuated the wisdom that he gathered in his journeys. And It focused on valuing the primordial feminine, including collaboration, partnership, and intuition, as well as the masculine, and harmonized wholeness of the spiritual and the material. He found an encyclopedia with scientific and esoteric knowledge, the scientist and the mystic, people who understand their correlations, such as the Hermetic principle, what is above is like that which is below. That's our relationship with the whole. Interacting with the invisible spiritual counterparts of visible nature, the essences of earth, air, water, and fire. Discovering the latent forces of nature and how to use them. Collaborating with others to expand and improve our knowledge instead of protecting our worldview. This view of Brother CR is communicated in every Rosicrucian monograph, in the Rosicrucian manifestos, those that were published in the 1600s and those that were published in the last few years, and in the work that we carry out in our sanctums. We can see that we are an integral part of the whole, and we are participating in the evolution of the universe. Last Saturday, in his presentation on consciousness and reality, Frater Julian Johnson mentioned the awe that we experience when we look at the stars. That's when we recognize that we are part of that amazing whole. That really touched me when Julian mentioned that. And Michael Shillelagh presented on the uncreated fire axis. He said, we create within the light of the sun, and we are part of that light. As above, so below. We have a hand in molding what will be. We have a responsibility to build a positive world that supports the radiant health of all species, all people, and our planet. We do this through our thoughts and actions. We affect the vibratory energy of the world through our thoughts. So let our thoughts be spiritual. Let us speak from our souls and listen with our souls. I'd like to share with you something that H. Spencer Lewis wrote. To the mystic, prayer is a meeting of the minds. It is not an occasion for personal petitioning, but for spiritual communion. It is a time when the soul is within us, and the deepest and most inner parts of our being sacredly, sincerely, and quietly speak to the divine and express the deepest wishes of our hearts and minds. Now, I invite you to attune with the Celestial Sanctum. So again, if you would sit comfortably, close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths. Now, visualize your awareness ascending above where you are seated, above the building you're in, above your city, above your state or province, above your country, going higher and higher until when you look back, you see Earth as a spinning sphere. Now continue your ascent until you see in the distance your celestial sanctum. The celestial sanctum is the highest plane of consciousness with which we can attune. But since it's rather abstract, we visualize it as a place that fills our heart with joy. So it could be a beautiful place in a forest or a meadow or by water, or it could be a beautiful building. But see your celestial sanctum and now enter this sacred place. Look around you and experience the beauty, smell the fragrances. Hear the inspiring sounds. Be aware of how you feel here in your celestial sanctum. Again, H. Spencer Lewis wrote, "To the mystic, prayer is a meeting of the minds. It is not an occasion for personal petitioning, but for spiritual communion. It is a time when the soul within us and the deepest and most inner parts of our being sacredly, sincerely, and quietly speak to the divine and express the deepest wishes of our hearts and minds." Now express your wish, asking, how can I be of the most service to all beings and this beautiful planet on which we live at this auspicious time? How can I be of the most service to all beings and this beautiful planet on which we live at this auspicious time? Embrace the response that you have received or that you will receive soon, and commit to taking action, to following the guidance of your inner master. And now we'll return from the celestial sanctum. See yourself leaving this beautiful, sacred place, heading back towards Earth, towards the country in which you live. Towards your city. If you're in a building, to the building where you are, or wherever you're seated, bring your awareness back to here and now. So mote it be. The Rosicrucian Manifesto from 1614, the Fama Fraternitatis, ends with a direct request. Again, they made several requests to the learned people of Europe, to the scholars and the rulers, to consider their offer to help restore harmony to society and to declare their agreement. 400 years after the Fama Fraternitatis was published, in the year 2014, the Rosicrucian Order AMORC published the Appellatio Fraternitatis Rosae Crucis, the appeal or call. And this call wasn't just to the learned people or the rulers of society, it's a call to all mystics to participate in the transformation of society. This document focuses on 3 areas: spirituality, humanism, and ecology, or taking care of the environment. The Appellatio concludes with these words: "These then are the ideas that we wish to share with you. We do indeed believe that it has become urgent for us to move in a spiritual, humanistic, and ecological direction in terms of our individual and collective behavior. But if a higher priority was to be given, it would be in favor of protecting the environment. Indeed, if humanity succeeds in finding a long-term solution to the social and economic problems encountered by it, but if, in parallel, Earth has become uninhabitable or difficult to live on for the vast majority of its inhabitants, what is the point? And what pleasure can be gained from living there?"